was a kid, I dreamed of having a Fender guitar. And I saw all my favorite Guitar Heroes playing Telecasters on.
At 66, Marty Stuart has finally discussed Connie Smith. The disclosure was a surprise, leaving many stunned as he shared the authentic account of how he and Connie became a couple despite their 17-year age gap. How did this come to be? Let's trace how this poetic and destined love affair became a reality. Marty Stuart speaks out about Connie Smith. In country music, tales of romance are everywhere. Some are penned into lyrics, others unfold on stage between duets, while many end in divorce. However, the story of Marty Stuart and Connie Smith is an unusual one that keeps people intrigued. And today, Marty Stuart has amazed everyone by affirming a lasting love story with the love of his life. Marty Stuart and Connie Smith's story started long ago in the summer of 1970. Not on a stage, not with a guitar. It began in the audience when 12-year-old Marty Stuart met a woman 17 years older than him and saw beyond the present into the future. However, Connie had no idea she had just met the love of her life. Marty Stuart was only 12 when he first saw Connie Smith. She was already an established celebrity, topping charts with soulful music and standing among country music's elite. She also happened to be one of Marty Stuart's mother's favorite vocalists, second only to Marty Robbins, after whom she had named her son. At home in Mississippi, Marty's mother had a copy of Connie's 1966 album titled Miss Smith Goes to Nashville, the cover of which showed a striking portrait of Connie. Young Marty had a crush on her. He often called her beautiful and was drawn to the emotional force of her music. However, Marty wasn't a normal child. At age 12, he was already touring with Lester Flat's band and playing mandolin with a skill that astonished even grown musicians. So, when Marty heard that Connie Smith was coming to town, he started counting the days. He asked his mother to buy him a yellow shirt. He wanted to stand out from the crowd. He wanted Connie to notice him. On the day of the concert, Marty, his sister, and his mother went to see Connie perform live at the fairground in Philadelphia, Mississippi, Marty's hometown. As he stood in the crowd watching her sing, something stirred in his heart. Marty decided he was going to marry Connie Smith. After the show, Marty got his picture taken with Connie and also got her autograph. However, he didn't end there. Just as Connie Smith was getting ready to leave, he borrowed his mother's camera and rushed over to the car where Connie was sitting. He asked if he could take her picture. Marty recalled it as the first picture he ever took, a close-up that showed just their faces. He was delighted. Even managed a few words with her, although Connie didn't remember this moment. To her, he was just another fan. But fate had something different planned. When Marty returned to his family, he told his mother, "I'm going to marry Connie Smith someday." She laughed. It seemed like a child's fantasy, just some innocent crush. But Marty wasn't kidding. How could a boy 17 years younger than Connie Smith, already a mother, already married, ever hope to marry this beautiful established celebrity? While everyone thought Marty's words were meaningless, he meant every one of them, and he held on to it. It turned into a quiet commitment he carried in his heart for decades, even as life moved on for both of them. Thus, the impossible dream turned into something far more serious. The beauty of this story lies in how what seemed impossible became real, a hidden miracle. Marty Stuart's childhood dream of marrying Connie Smith came true as some unexpected events happened that led to this extraordinary union. Before we go into how it all unfolded, let's take a closer look at Marty Stuart's early life to understand why this union is often called a miracle. Marty Stuart was born on September 30th, 1958 in Philadelphia, Mississippi. Raised primarily by his mother, he picked up the guitar and mandolin as a child. By age 12, he had already joined a gospel group called the Sullivans. His gift and determination opened doors. Soon after, through a friend named Roland White, Marty was invited to play alongside country legend Lester Flatt at a concert in Delaware. What began as a one-night chance turned into something long-lasting. Marty became a regular member of Flatt's band, touring with them until Flatt retired in 1978. By then, Marty Stuart was no longer a beginner to the music business, but a grounded, and respected young artist, he began building his path. In 1978, he recorded an independent album titled With a Little Help from My Friends, and started performing regularly. He had a commanding stage presence, the kind that drew people in. Before long, he was playing alongside legends like Vassar, Clements, and Doc Watson before eventually joining Johnny Cash's band in 1980. However, Marty couldn't be pinned to one style. On stage, he carried the storytelling soul of Hank Williams and the raw flair of Clarence White. In 1982, he released an album titled Busy Bee Cafe on Sugar Hill Records, a jam session that brought together the likes of Johnny Cash, Earl Scruggs, and Doc Watson. Though he stayed with Cash's band for several years, Marty eventually left to sign with Columbia Records. His career in the late 1980s took off. He released hits like Tempted and This One's Going to Hurt You. Yet, through all the tours and fame, one thing never changed. His admiration for Connie Smith. He never spoke of her like she was some boyhood fantasy. He called her the greatest voice in country music. Still is, he would add. These weren't empty compliments. His words revealed the depth of respect and affection he held for her. While Marty climbed the charts, Connie had stepped back. In the late 1970s, she left the spotlight to focus on raising her 5 children from her previous marriage. She also turned inward, redirecting her energy toward her faith and embracing gospel music. However, despite her retreat from fame, she had already confirmed her legacy. Connie Smith was the first female country artist to reach #1 on the Billboard chart, and she stayed there for 8 straight weeks. It was an achievement unmatched for years. While the industry moved on to new voices, Marty kept her music alive. He collected her records, he studied her phrasing. He mentioned her in interviews whenever he could. When he spoke about her, it was always in the present tense. She was never a name of the past. She was still the woman he admired. Even though Marty met and worked with countless artists, Connie remained his center. In an interview, he once said, "Connie had always been there with him, even when she wasn't singing, even when she didn't know it." Later, it came to light that Marty had kept an old photograph of her, one from the 1960s, tucked carefully inside his guitar case. He carried it with him always. However, Marty married Cindy Cash, Johnny Cash's daughter. Unfortunately, the marriage didn't last. They divorced a few years later. The divorce marked the beginning of something new. In the 1990s, Marty Stuart was now one of the top country music stars in the world, continuing in Connie Smith's legacy. However, he had made a name for himself and was now admired by many and respected by all. Even Connie Smith had heard of him, though they hadn't crossed paths in years. He had become the new face of the country's rich legacy. Despite all the admiration Marty had shown her over the years, despite his quiet hope that she would return to the spotlight, Connie stayed away. The demands of being an iconic music star were too much, especially for a mother raising young children. Instead of trying to keep up with the industry, Connie moved away from the spotlight and focused on her children and her faith. She stopped attending shows and singing in them, instead singing in gospel circles. She lived quietly away from the spotlight. Marty Stuart and Connie Smith's love story. Marty Stuart looked forward to seeing Connie Smith as he hadn't been able to as she stepped away from the music industry. However, one day an opportunity presented itself. Their first meeting was memorable during an annual event. Felt like a dream come true, and Marty Stuart couldn't hold himself. He was excited to see her. They talked about music. He shared his views with such depth and care that Connie found herself taken by his perspective on music. Soon again, they met at the Grand Ole Opry. This time, Connie asked him if he would like to work with her on a song. Marty didn't hesitate. To him, it wasn't just a collaboration. It was a dream fulfilled. That meeting sparked something beautiful. They wrote music together. Connie later revealed in an interview that they had written over 40 to 50 songs. Working side by side brought a rhythm and closeness that went beyond harmonies. Marty found himself thinking about Connie all day. He enjoyed their meetings and didn't want each session to end. Her presence brought him peace, and he wanted to have her over again, although he didn't tell her. He was in love with Connie Smith, but he was nervous. He didn't know how she would react if he told her how he felt. Yes, he was no longer a boy, but he was still 17 years younger. He wondered if that difference still mattered to her. One evening, he sat with his mother and told her everything. His feelings for Connie, his fears, and the hope he still carried. This time, she didn't laugh. Instead, she looked at him and urged him to tell Connie. Then, one day, an opportunity presented itself in a grocery store. When Marty saw Connie there, he didn't approach her like a schoolboy backstage. He approached her like the man he had become, Marty Stuart, confident, accomplished, sure. And this time he told her how he felt. Then quietly he pulled her into a kiss. It surprised everyone, even Connie. People questioned whether she would truly give this relationship a chance. Connie Smith was hesitant to accept Marty Stuart's proposal to date. Her views on relationships had changed. After years of disappointment, she had sworn off romance. That decision wasn't made lightly. It came from hard-lived experience. Connie Smith had been married 4 times. In 1961, she married Jerry Smith, a ferroanalyst at the Interlake Iron Corporation in Beverly, Ohio. They had 1 son together, Darren Justin. Darren later went to Europe to become a missionary. By the mid-1960s, Connie and Jerry divorced. Her second marriage was to guitarist Jack Watkins, a member of her touring band. The marriage was short-lived. They separated nearly a year later, though they had already welcomed the son. Still searching for lasting love, Connie met Marshall Haynes, a phone repairman. They married in the 1970s, and it felt different. Haynes frequently toured with her, and they built a life together. The couple had 3 daughters, and their marriage lasted nearly 2 decades. Unfortunately, by the early 1990s, they too divorced. After that, Connie Smith said she was done with marriage. No more chances, no more vows. She wanted peace of mind, not another emotional gamble. Who could blame her? By then, she had lived through heartbreak and felt no urgency for public affection. Her faith was her foundation. Emotional stability meant more to her than fleeting affection or external attention. If Marty Stuart wanted her heart, he would have to earn it with more than love songs and sweet words. And he did. Marty understood her past. He respected her pace. Despite all that stood against them, the years between them, the difference in life stages, he remained steady. He didn't chase her like a fan. He loved her with patience, with quiet loyalty. It was never loud. It was always clear, though Connie once said she would never marry again. On July 8, 1997, she married someone few had expected. Her longtime admirer and producer, country artist Marty Stuart. For Marty, it was a childhood dream fulfilled. The boy who once wore a yellow shirt to her concert had now become her husband. Their wedding was private, quiet, and deeply personal, with no press releases, no magazine spreads. Few in the industry even knew it had happened at first. When the news finally came out, some eyebrows were raised. Connie was 55. Marty was 39. The age gap stirred public interest not because of the difference itself, but because the woman was older. In a world where older men marrying younger women barely raises a question, their union reversed the script. People talked. Reporters asked. But Marty and Connie didn't explain or defend. They simply continued being themselves. In an interview, Marty dismissed the concern entirely. He said the age difference never mattered. He had loved her since he was a kid. And in his eyes, she was still as beautiful as the day she first walked on stage. To them, it was never about years. It was about experience. The industry had shaped both. Both had seen fame and loneliness. Both had held on to faith. And in each other, they found steadiness, warmth, and peace. Their love wasn't flashy. It wasn't sudden. It was real. It had been building quietly over 3 years of courtship. Their relationship grew not in headlines, but in small moments, in church pews, in rehearsals, in quiet conversations. Toes, to them, could see it. It was different. When Connie was asked why, she said she saw something in Marty that no one else saw. Most of all, she appreciated that he never tried to control her. Despite being her producer, Marty never pushed her to re-enter the spotlight. He didn't ask her to relive her chart-topping years or reshape her sound. He didn't try to manage her comeback. Instead, he gave her room to rest, to choose, to return if she wished, and she did on her terms. Connie Smith returns to the spotlight. Marty Stuart and Connie Smith's life together was built on mutual love and trust. They respected each other's space and treated each other gently. Marty continued to tour, work on his preservation projects, and defend the legacy of traditional country music. Connie stayed rooted at home. She still sang occasionally in gospel settings, but recorded only when she felt moved to. When she was ready to return to the studio, it was Marty who produced her new record, but not to steer her sound. His goal wasn't to mold her voice, but to frame it as it was. Maybe that was the heart of their bond. They didn't rescue each other from obscurity or heartbreak. They made room for each other's truths. For Marty, the fulfillment of that childhood vow wasn't about conquest. It was about becoming the kind of man who deserved it. For Connie, the surprise wasn't that a boy once promised to marry her. It was that someone finally came along with nothing to prove and nothing to fix. Their love didn't follow the rhythms of industry trends. It followed something quieter, something lasting. But the story didn't end there. After their marriage, Marty Stuart and Connie Smith chose not to rush into the spotlight with glittering duets or grand reunion shows. Their fans waited. Many expected Connie to return with a powerful country record, maybe a duet album with her new husband. After all, the last time she had released a full studio album of original material was in the late 1970s. For years, Connie had pulled back from commercial music. Aside from gospel performances, she remained mostly silent on the charts. But behind the scenes, something remarkable was unfolding. Instead of following industry pressure, Connie and Marty followed inspiration. Together, they crafted an album, titled simply Connie Smith. It was a thoughtful collection of new songs written by both Connie and Marty. Stuart produced the album not to control her vision, but to let her voice shine through with all its soul and wisdom intact. The record marked Connie's return to mainstream country after nearly 2 decades. After the release of her self-titled album, Connie Smith stepped back once again. Years passed. Then in 2011, she returned with a new country album titled Long Line of Heartaches. It too was produced by Marty Stuart, who took deliberate care to keep the sound unpolished by modern country trends. He didn't smooth the edges. He didn't add commercial shine. The album held to a sound that felt honest, lived in, and untouched. It featured works from revered songwriters like Harlan Howard and Costas alongside songs written by Connie and Marty themselves. It felt like a comeback, but not one staged for attention. Connie didn't rebrand. She did not even try to use media tours or a public campaign to promote the album. She didn't need all of that to create a masterpiece. And she did create a masterpiece, one that slowly became the talk of the town and earned her numerous accolades. When Marty was busy receiving the praise for the success of the album and how he shaped the record to become what it was, he was busy basking in the pure joy of hearing Connie's voice ring out. His joy came in watching the world hear her, really hear her. After all that silence, as the years went by, headlines occasionally circled back to them. People remained curious. Marty and Connie were still present, but they gave little away. They toured lightly, gave few joint interviews, and rarely opened their private life to the press. Their public appearances, when they did happen, felt deliberate. What the world began to understand was this: their spotlight was not on stage. It was at home, their private lives. Marty and Connie built a house in Hendersonville, Tennessee. That home became their sanctuary. But it wasn't just a retreat from the world. It was also a place of preservation, a quiet stronghold for the music they both cherished. Marty, who had been collecting country music memorabilia since he was a boy, now holds one of the most significant private collections in the country. Stage suits, handwritten lyrics, rare vinyl pressings, original posters, ticket stubs, all of it kept safe, all of it rooted in memory. Nonetheless, it wasn't just nostalgia. The collection told a story. It showed what country music looked and sounded like before image replaced soul, before formulas replaced grit. More than just preserving tradition, Marty was also safeguarding Connie's legacy, especially the parts that were nearly forgotten when she left the business in the late 1970s. Though Connie rarely spoke publicly about why she withdrew, closest to her understood. It wasn't just one reason. It was the exhaustion of trying to hold everything at once: motherhood, music, marriage, and faith. The pressure of industry expectations, the loneliness of touring, the feeling of being constantly pulled and never fully heard. She had carried all of it, and in the end, she chose stillness. But even stillness leaves scars. Marty never tried to fix that. He didn't tell her to explain. He simply made space. And in that space, she began to heal. T and Connie's strongest form of communication, by all accounts, was silence. Not silence as avoidance, but silence as understanding. There was no need to chase the past or reclaim what had been lost. They were building something slower, steadier, and real. In time, Connie began performing again, bit by bit, song by song. She recorded 2 more studio albums in the years that followed: Cry of the Heart in 2021 and Love, Prison, Wisdom, and Heartache in 2024. Both records were produced with the same care and restraint as her earlier work with Marty. There was no rush, no gimmick, no marketing hook, just her voice. Unmistakable, undiminished. Once again, Connie Smith graced the world with her gift. And behind that quiet and deliberate return stood Marty Stuart, who had made it possible not by pushing her forward, but by giving her room to stand when she was ready. However, Connie Smith wasn't always a sensational icon. Her story started from a modest home in Indiana. Connie Smith's rise to fame. Connie Smith wasn't always called Connie. She was born Constance June Meter to Wilma and Hobart Moore in Elkhart, Indiana. Her parents had roots in West Virginia, and when Connie was just 5 months old, the family returned there. Later, they moved again, this time to Ohio, where most of her childhood unfolded. But home wasn't peaceful. Her father, Hobart, was an alcoholic and physically mean. Connie later recalled facing some of the hardest moments of her young life under his roof. He often raised his hand against her. Eventually, her parents divorced. Her mother later remarried a man named Tom Clark. He brought 8 children of his own into the marriage. Wilma already had 5, and together she and Tom had 2 more, bringing the total to 15 children in the household. It was a full house, often loud, often strained, but filled with music. Connie's love for music grew naturally. Her stepfather played the mandolin. One of her brothers played the fiddle, another the guitar. On Saturday nights, the whole family gathered around the radio to listen to the Grand Ole Opry broadcast. That became a kind of ritual, one of the few quiet shared joys in a crowded home. Then something unexpected happened. Connie was in a serious lawnmower accident that nearly severed her leg. While recovering in the hospital, someone gave her a guitar. She began strumming slowly, teaching herself chords while she healed. At first, she only played privately behind closed doors for herself. She didn't think of it as a performance, just something that gave her peace. Then a friend invited her to sing Connie Francis's pop hit, My Happiness, and she did, and it worked. People noticed. That small moment became the first time she let her voice carry in front of others. She went on to graduate from Salem Liberty High School in 1959 as the class salutatorian, missing the top spot by only 1/10 of a point. After high school, Connie took several jobs. She worked as a telephone operator in Lowell, Ohio. She also spent time as a grocery store clerk, a drugstore assistant, and later as a dental aide. At 19, she married her first husband, Jerry Smith. He supported her singing and encouraged her to pursue it further. She started performing more often, and in 1962 she gave her first professional performance at the Washington County Fair. Shortly after that, she briefly joined Saturday Night Jamboree, a local country music TV program. Unfortunately, after just one performance, she was let go. She later suspected it was because she was pregnant at the time. Nonetheless, she didn't stop. She successfully auditioned for WSAZ-TV, landing a spot on a similar regional country show. Despite the opportunities, Connie didn't originally see music as a long-term path. She wanted to be a homemaker, a mother. She didn't imagine a career in the spotlight. However, fate had other plans. In August 1963, she entered a talent contest at Frontier Ranch, a country music park near Columbus, Ohio. She chose Gene Shepard's "I Thought of You." Her voice rang out strong and clear. She won the contest and $5 silver. One of the judges that day was singer-songwriter Bill Anderson. He said he thought they were playing a record and she was lip-syncing. However, he wasn't the only one who thought so. Her voice didn't sound like someone starting. It sounded seasoned, like it had already been through something. At that moment, something unexpected happened. It wasn't just a contest win for Connie Smith. It was the beginning of her story. In January 1964, Connie Smith crossed paths with Bill Anderson once again. It was at a country music package concert in Canton, Ohio. This time he extended a personal invitation. Would she come to Nashville and perform with him on Ernest Tubb's Midnight Jamboree? She accepted the invitation and traveled to Nashville in March of the same year, but when she arrived, she discovered something unexpected. She wasn't to perform with Anderson after all. Instead, she was to appear on stage with Ernest Tubb himself. It turned out to be a moment that shaped everything. Her performance that night left an impression. After the show, none other than Loretta Lynn approached her, introduced herself, and gave her words of encouragement and career advice. That brief interaction stayed with Connie for years. Encouraged, Smith returned to Nashville in May of the same year to record demo songs that Bill Anderson had written. He intended to pitch the tracks to other country artists. But when Anderson's manager, Hubert Long, brought the demos to RCA Victor, everything changed. Chad Atkins, one of the most influential producers in country music history, listened to the recordings. He was struck by Connie's voice. It had a kind of fullness, a tone that carried both emotion and clarity. He didn't need to hear more. He offered her a recording contract. That contract launched one of country music's most unforgettable voices. Years later, after building a storied career, Connie stepped back. Fame for her was never the goal. Music was a calling, not a performance. Today, Connie Smith holds 11 Grammy nominations to her name, including 8 nominations for Best Female Country Vocal Performance. She has been nominated for multiple Country Music Association and Academy of Country Music Awards. Rolling Stone also listed her among the 100 greatest country artists of all time, and CMT ranked her among the top 10 women of country music. In 2012, she was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Marty Stuart, too, has carved out his place in history. With 5 Grammy Awards and 16 nominations, he's not only a master musician, but a tireless advocate for traditional country music. Like Connie, he is a member of both the Grand Ole Opry and the Country Music Hall of Fame. Together, they've built something rare, a life that holds both legacy and love. Despite the 17-year age gap, despite multiple marriages, despite fame's demands, they've learned what devotion truly looks like. Connie once said, "The key to making their marriage work was to make the Lord the center and to commit." She also added that one has to do the work as well, and they have done exactly that. They've raised a family together. They have a son, Jesse, Scott Stewart, and 5 children from Connie's previous marriages. Marty has stepped in as a father figure, and by every account, he loves each of them without distinction. Family is not a duty for him, it's a joy. Marty once said, "With Connie, I've learned how to balance love and music. She puts a whole lot more emphasis on family life than I ever did, and she's brought that balance into my world." For decades, country music has been full of fleeting fame and frayed marriages. However, Connie Smith and Marty Stuart have built something that lasts. They've made love look steady. Not theatrical, but quiet. Not rushed, but rooted. Together, they remain proof that love, real love, doesn't follow a script. It just shows up and stays. What do you think of Marty Stuart's words on Connie Smith? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you found this video interesting, like, share, and subscribe to this channel.